So the day of the September 3rd, we were ordered to take the school. Just go and take the school, see the level of commitment. What we didn't know was that there was at least 400 well dug in Taliban fighters. And what happened was we walked in an extended line and we just kept walking, and we were actually walking through marijuana fields like I was telling you earlier. So I just remember looking up in the air and seeing this green pen flare go off, right? And I'm freaking out like, man, that's kind of weird. Why is there a green? And that was the signal indicating that we had walked far enough into their trap. What they had done is they dug in a U. So we were enveloped on 3 sides. So what ended up happening was as soon as that green flare went off, that it signaled, okay, they're far enough in, now open up. And we ended up being embroiled in a 5-hour firefight, 5-6 hours. And there's like 80 of us, and there was anywhere from 400 to, they said, as high as 1,200, but I think 400 is closer to the actual number. And we ended up fighting for hours, and we had 4 Canadians killed and another 16 wounded. So our 80, literally 1 in 4 of us were either hit or killed, right? So we ended up having to retreat, and then the next morning we were going to do a show of force. And what a show of force is where you just pretty much, you just fire at something and just show them, like, you know, what we're capable of. So sometimes in Canada, and you know, we have like training where we just stop in Afghanistan. There's a mountain, you know, or in your middle of the desert, and you just kind of like just unload into the side of the mountain, or you do some exercising and stuff to show like how good we are, right? So if anybody's looking, you can see that these guys, you know, are practicing their trade, right? So this is basically what we're gonna do now. Is we're gonna, you know, go after that white school. That morning of the 4th, I was eating breakfast with my fire team partner on the side of a mountain, and I just got flung in the air, right? So flying in the air, I landed face first. I broke my nose, and I just remember I blacked out, passed out, and when I came to, this arm, my right arm, was flailing like a fish out of water, right? And I had no idea what was going on. And I personally thought that it was detached and it was, you know, cut off, and it was just flailing like that, right? So I grabbed it, right? And it was still attached, and I was able to regain control of it. Like, it wasn't just spasming out of control, right? So I'm like, okay, that was weird. And I grabbed my other arm, made sure, and I grabbed my legs, and I did, like, you know, the check. I'm like, oh, wow. Oh. And then as soon as I went, whew, I don't know if I shifted or whatever, but then the blood just started pouring down my face, just pouring, and like a faucet, right? I'm like, oh, this is not good. And I remember thinking, like, I've never felt my head feel like this, almost as if like I could feel air on my brain. I don't know if you, like, that's the best way I can describe it, right? It was just, it was a penetrating head wound, right? But I just knew something was really wrong. Blood, even if I hadn't been bleeding, which obviously, you know, head wounds bleed a lot, right? So my first instinct was I started trying to catch the blood flowing down my face. And it wasn't until I had my hands full of a cup, like my whole hands were just overflowing with blood. And I remember, I'm like, Bruce, you can't, this blood's no good anymore. I remember I just like kind of like, oh, fine. And I just dropped this full cup full of blood, and I could still see the blood coagulating in the sand and everything like that. And I ended up where I couldn't really lift my head, so I started crawling, leopard crawling on my face, dragging my face across this mountain to getting to my fire team partner, and he was hit as well. And I was like, man, I wasn't really talking. He's kind of looking at my injuries, like really freaking out, but trying to put on a brave face for me, right? And I just remember hearing him whisper to the guy next to me. He's like, do you know how to treat a penetrating head injury? He's like, I don't know what to do. So they just put like a field pad, you know, a medic pad on my head, and just kind of let it, you know, soak up the blood, I guess. And eventually I was airlifted to Camp Nathan Smith. And this is Labor Day weekend, 2006, and my family, I call them up and I say to them, I say, listen, I'm going into emergency brain surgery. It's 2 a.m. our time here, Eastern, and I'm going into emergency brain surgery. You know, I've been hit. I couldn't tell them it was a friendly fire. I couldn't tell them. I'm just like, oh, that's all I can tell you. And she talked to the doctor, and she's like, okay, doc, you know, lay it on the line. What are his odds of survival? And he's like, right now I give him 50-50 shot of living.